It was 19 years ago where we had the worst terrorist attack in American history, where almost 3,000 people lost their lives. It was a day that nobody will ever forget, and we should never forget those innocent people, those heroes. I remember the stories. Everybody has a personal story, where they were in that building, on a plane. I remember the plane that went down in Pennsylvania, those heroes on that plane that did everything they could to stop those bastards, those terrorists. How many lives did they save by trying to take over the cockpit? God, I wish they did. And there's ceremonies going on throughout the country, as there should be. And the man that's has attended one of them, an attendance remembrance ceremony in New York, his name is Mike Dempsey. He survived the 9/11 attacks and the October 1 shooting. He was right there at Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas when that occurred. His story is incredible, and he joins us right now on the line. Mike, I appreciate you being with us. How are you?
Very good. How you guys doing today?
Doing great, thanks.
Doing good, Mike. So when I first hear about your story, I say to myself, how is that even possible? You know, what are the odds? And I'm sure a lot of people have those conversations with you. How do you respond to that?
I'm either lucky or unlucky. So I've heard people refer to me as that Bruce Willis character in was it Unbreakable, or
right.
It could be just one of those things. But I kind of look at it as lucky. You know, I think, yeah, I do travel a lot. I probably sometimes end up in the wrong place at the wrong time. But there's a purpose. You know, I've got more spiritual about, especially after the Mandalay Bay, why I was there that weekend, which I can certainly talk a little bit about.
Sure.
I try to always, when you end up in a situation like that, there's always not a comic twist to it, but you always want to look at the humor and how did I end up in this kind of situation. I always try to look at that to help me deal with, to cope with why it happened.
Sure,
so that's
sure.
kind of how I get through it.
Yeah,
so.
and we'll get to October 1. I guess let's start 9/11 if I can with you, Mark, or if I can with you, Mike, and let's start with that. Obviously, today being a very special day to remember those we lost 19 years ago. Can you just share with our listening audience, those that are not familiar with your story, where exactly were you on 9/11, and can you take us through that day and what you had to go through?
Yeah, I mean, it could be I could keep you on the air for 2 more hours, but I'll try to give you the short tidbits here. But I was working for Credit Suisse First Boston on the top floor of 5 World Trade Center, which is connected to 1. As many people don't know, there were 7 buildings in the World Trade Center, all connected. 5 was connected to 1. There were 9 stories in 5 World Trade Center, which hit our building. I think what caused the fire in 5 World Trade Center was the engine of the first plane landed in our building. But again, none of us know, because when it happened, I was in my office and heard a boom, loud sound, shook. My desk shook as it would have if I'd been in the towers. And looking outside, it looked like people were looking at us. And I thought it could be a bomb. Didn't know anything about a plane. We didn't have TVs. We didn't have the kind of visual aids or social media to tell us what was happening.
Right.
So I evacuated pretty quickly. But my wife, who I was trying to contact, she worked for Marsh McLennan. She was on her way to work. I didn't even know what time she was getting in. But she worked on the 100th floor of Tower 1. So when I got downstairs, evacuated down the stairwell, instead of going out on VC Street, if anybody knows Lower Manhattan, that would have been probably the safest area to evacuate. But I ended up going through the mall of the World Trade Center to get into 1 World Trade Center to look for her, to contact her. I just got on a cell phone.
Wow.
Got into the lobby. Then I saw the glass blown out when I entered 1 World Trade Center. See the glass blown out. The firefighters, this is probably a little bit before 9 o'clock, had just arrived. And again, obviously the security was telling me, you can't go upstairs or we're not letting you up to see your wife. It was in kind of F-bombs happening left and right around me. So now thinking I have to reach her, I'm not getting an answer. I go outside, go back to the mall, and I come out on, which was strategically probably the best place it could have been, knowing the World Trade Center on the other side of where the first building, the first tower got hit. So went out on that side. And there's a record store called Sam Goody, one of those old record stores.
Yep.
We had records. And got out on that side by Liberty Street in Greenwich, which is the complete opposite of where I was to begin with 15 minutes earlier. As I got out, the second plane was barreling into the to World Trade Center.
Oh my God! So you're telling me I hate to interrupt, but I just have to stop you.
Yeah, no.
You're telling me you just went out of World Trade Center 1. I would imagine you're walking or running out of World Trade Center 1. You have no idea what's happening. You're looking for your wife, and as you're running out of World Trade Center 1, you actually hear the plane hitting World Trade Center 2. I mean, what is going through your mind?
Didn't have time to react, so I basically got trampled, and you can imagine people, that were in front or in back of me, and it became and a lot of people had similar, but I had fallen face forward. I don't remember anything. Was knocked out, I guess, from what ended up in a hospital called NYU downtown Beekman. But how I got there, I don't have any memory of anything from the time the plane hit till afterwards, till I ended up in the emergency room. So that was kind of where that was a part of the morning that was the most not remembering, and being a former football player with many concussions and some of the CTE and things you think about years later from college, arena football, things I had tried out for as an arena football player in 1993. I had 4 previous head injuries, and this, I said, the one I had on 9/11, I had fractured skull, internal bleeding. I was transferred that day later to Mercy Medical, which was out in Rockville Center, who did a really good job taking care of me. But, it wasn't physical injuries, I think, and they would think it was more. I think the worst part of that morning was being in an outdoor triage that they had set up in the hospital, which is only blocks away from City Hall and from the World Trade Center.
Right.
And when they had the outdoor triage, when the building 2 collapsed, Tower 2 collapsed first, that debris cloud that you see on TV, the famous images, that came toward the Brooklyn Bridge. So NYU downtown Beekman is right before the Brooklyn Bridge. So being there, and I remember the 4 or 5 other injury victims that were outside. Doctors and nurses were actually inside at that point, whether they knew or not. We were left out there and with not even hearing this rumble, and it went dark. And the thing I remember about it, I had just had LASIK surgery about a few months earlier, and I was blind for quite, having that soot in my eyes.
Right.
And that knowing, the first reaction was thinking it was a nuclear attack. You don't think about a building. At that point, I still didn't even know the planes hit the World Trade Center. Nobody had explained what was happening. So not knowing could have either been to my advantage or disadvantage.
Gosh.
Maybe if I knew, I'd have more fear.
And your wife, what is your wife doing during this time?
She had taken, so the backstory and how I got involved, I'll talk about the charity work I do with the New York Yankees.
Yeah, I definitely want to do that.
September 10th, 2001, Roger Clemens going for his 20th win. We were supposed to be at the game that night, and it was a 2.5-hour rain delay. And I remember it was unusual. Usually rain delays, they call a game right away. This happened 2.5 hours into it. It was called off, missed our Long Island Railroad train that night, and we didn't get back till 1 a.m. in the morning. That saved her life, obviously. So that whole New York Yankee element to it definitely helped, and she was late. She took the 8:06 train from Valley Stream or Gibson, where we were living, got into Penn Station at 8:45, and she was on her way downtown. So it went to Canal Street, the E train, and it stopped, and I didn't know that. We didn't communicate till, I think, 5:30 that day because she didn't know what hospital I was in. She was looking for me at St. Vincent's, another hospital that had injury victims, and I was in a different hospital. So that was kind of the unique nature of and then I learned that she was, what happened later, I couldn't get a hold of her. I was thinking she probably perished. So it was a
my goodness
where we didn't know the other person was alive.
Well, thank God, though. I can't imagine how difficult that must have been for you. If you're just joining us, we're speaking with Mike Dempsey. He and his wife survived 9/11, and amazing, Mike. And of course, that's a day that you'll never forget. I'll never forget it. And I wasn't there like you were. I can't even imagine the minutes, the seconds, the hours that passed where you didn't know if your wife made it or not. Thank God both of you made it okay. So you survived what is the worst terrorist attack in American history. We all remember that day. And now we fast forward, Mike, and this is just so crazy. About 16 years later, I've lived in Vegas 20 years, the worst mass shooting in American history. You just, survived the worst terrorist attack in American history 16 years earlier. You are at the Mandalay Bay House of Blues. For those of you that don't know, yes, the House of Blues is at Mandalay Bay. I've seen some great concerts there. And as you're at the House of Blues, little do you know at the time, as you walk into that show, the worst attack, mass shooting in American history is about to take place. Take me through that night.
Well, actually, it wasn't the House of Blues. Is where I ended up in lockdown. That was the end of the night.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
I didn't get to eat all the good Cajun food that they serve there. So, unfortunately, lockdown or in lockdown in a restaurant like that, you think they'd serve you all that good food, but no, I didn't get any of that or the liquor. I was really hoping for that. But, no, I was actually at a bar called the Eye Candy Bar, which is in Mandalay Bay.
Very close.
Drinks an old friend.
Yep.
Yeah, it was our spot. And why I was there was ironic, too. Brett Raymer, who is, you might know him from the TV show 10.
I was just hanging out with Brett last night.
That's my boy. Brett and I are best buddies growing up in Brooklyn, New York. You can tell by my accent. And Brett was getting engaged on his TV show for an episode. And I said, well, I've always helped him out getting him celebrities, Chris Jericho, Johnny Damon for his show. I said, I want to be on this episode so my kids can see me on the. So I went out there specifically just to get on the Tanked episode the day before. And actually, when the episode aired, I had like 3 seconds. I guess the editing room didn't give me enough airtime for almost getting killed that night. But Brett and I, that was why I went out there. Saw some old friends. And ended up at the Mandalay Bay, and I was going to Scott Baio's golf outing the next day in L.A. So I had a flight Monday, 8 a.m., I believe, was my flight out of Vegas to L.A. to go golf with Scott for Scott Baio's foundation. And, happened to be. So when I'm in the Eye Candy place, my friend Steve, who was with me, one of my oldest friends, he was trying to get back to the Excalibur and trying to find the tram. That tram that goes back.
Sure.
I don't go. No disrespect to the Excalibur. I don't go to Excalibur Hotel. I'm like, I don't know where.
I don't blame you.
Let's walk out.
That place is terrible.
Yeah.
I know it can get on the street, Las Vegas Boulevard, and we'll just walk over. So I was outside when we heard.
You heard the shots. So where exactly are you? You're in front of Mandalay Bay when you hear these shots. And I have to ask you, as everything is transpiring, just like 9/11, we don't know exactly what's happening in real time. As you hear these shots and as the minutes go by and you see people running and you figure out, something really bad is happening here, does 9/11 go through your mind at any point? Oh, my God, here we are again.
It hit later because, honestly, as you've seen well documented, the reaction to what the shooting took quite a while. It wasn't until I heard sniper that and I didn't know where it was coming from. When you're in the middle of it, you can't see. Okay, it's this hotel, that hotel. It was even in the same hotel above us. Did not know. So that's that part of it. I couldn't tell you where, but I heard the pop, 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 and we heard somebody yell sniper. And that's when we went back toward the Mandalay Bay because we were by the fountain area over there, where the fountains are. And that's where so that's where we heard the noise. And I always say the first round to the second shot, I believe the guy must have switched windows. The first round I didn't really hear as well as the subsequent rounds. So I don't know if the guy, when he switched windows, but that's what I told the police that night. And I'll stick to that story because I know what I heard.
Gosh.
It definitely sounded a lot more closer from the first to what I heard afterwards.
Yeah.
But as we got back inside, that's when the whole sort of panic started to set in. I think the one part of that night that triggered 9/11 was running toward the elevator to try to get to my room. And the elevators, it was like out of a Halloween movie with Michael Myers, where you're in the elevator. And I'm with 3 other people, and I'm thinking up there, and the elevator started closing. Then it just opened again, and I heard screams, loud screams, blood-curdling screams. But what it was the security guard getting us out of the elevator. But I thought the shooter was right there.
I mean, again, I'm almost speechless here. I mean, again, you're involved in what was the worst terrorist attack in American history and the worst mass shooting in American history. Nobody should ever have to go through that. Thank God you got through both of it okay, you and your family and your wife. But here's something that I admire about you so much, Mike, that I want to give you an opportunity to talk about. In fact, it's my understanding you had a conversation with actor Matthew McConaughey earlier today about the charity work that you guys are involved with. You have done so many good things in years to help people, to help 9/11, people that were, families and people that were involved in 9/11. And same thing when it comes to Las Vegas. And I admire you so much for that, Mike, and the people that you've helped. Can you talk a little bit about your charity work and how people can get involved?
Well, I would say I think what started me on the charity side, right after 9/11 released, end of September 2001, had really deep depression, but then I found Oklahoma City bombing survivors and families that reached out to me to help us, and it kind of guided me on a path. Wow, these people are giving their time and energy, and I didn't even know much about the Oklahoma City bombing, and they started me on the path, and myself and Anthony Gardner, who lost his brother Harvey, decided to really take this World Trade Center United Family Group charity, which we had started as more of a information forum, peer support, and try to make it into something that was going to help families and survivors and first responders. And, we've obviously transformed our mission to focusing on 9/11 education, to teach 9/11 in classrooms around the country. But about 10 years ago or so, I said, it's great that we've been supported by a lot of great other who have helped fund us and kept us with true to our mission. But I want to get back to other charities and pay it forward. And that's how I got involved with a lot of other organizations, the Yankees, and I do a lot with the New York Yankees, been from New York, but a lot of great organizations. And I partnered with Mariano Rivera. Jim Leyritz comes out every year for us, just current Yankees, past Yankees. And since I was a wannabe NFL guy many, many years ago, and I do a lot with the NFL Alumni Network, and that's another passion I have to help give back to them. And they were very helpful to me through some tough times, even after Las Vegas, and provided me some counseling. So I try to get back to people who have really paid it forward to me, and I think that's both survivor guilt or just something in me felt like I needed to help others, and it makes me feel better when I see other people that can bring, taking a tragic day like 9/11. Every year we go on the trading floor, except for this year it's virtual. But turn a day like this into something inspiring is something that, and for me, helps me get through it. It's my routine every year. I go to the 9/11 remembrance ceremony, then I go to Cantor Fitzgerald, where they lost all their employees, on 9/11. And we had this charity day on the trading floor where all the rock stars and celebrities go out and raise money for there. It's a lot of fun. It's not real trading, but it's a lot of, I guess a lot of enthusiasm, energy. And then I go back to another ceremony for the Cantor victims and the end of the day. So I go through a roller coaster of being down, being up, being down, and it gets me through it. Everybody's got their own way of healing, and
right.
And I think the charity work just fuels me. It's my passion, and any way I could help. And I think the peer support with the Las Vegas community, and we've helped Parkland, their shooting survivors community. We did a big peer support forum last year with Vegas, 9/11, Columbine, Aurora, Boston, just to come together in unity. We're not doctors or psychologists. We're just there to give a hug or tell them that you'll get through this. And that's kind of what, if somebody can see what resiliency is all about, is being able to help others so that they can see the path. Because I didn't see it after 9/11, but I do now.
Right.
But
well, maybe there's a reason, Mike. Like you said, you're a spiritual guy. Maybe there's a reason why God put you there. And I tell you, you've helped so many people. Mike, you are truly an inspiration. And let me just say this, as a host of the Vegas Take Show here, we have a large listenership. If there is anything we can ever do to help you when it comes to this charity work, we will gladly have you on, or anyone else on associated with it, to talk about. I can't thank you enough. I know this is a very emotional day for you, as it is for many. And thank you so much for sharing your story with us, your inspirational story. Thank you so much for what you've done to help the good people here in Las Vegas and really throughout the country. I can't thank you enough, and I know I don't speak alone. And like I said, if there's anything else down the road that we can do to help you, please do not hesitate to contact us. Okay, Mike?
Yeah, well, can't wait to see Raiders game next year. I'm looking forward to the season, and pumped up. Brett's a Raiders fan, too.
Oh, yeah.
We hung out with Mark Davis and the family, so we're looking forward to that.
Well, I look for Brett's a good friend of mine as well, and when you come to town, I look forward to meeting you. And I just texted Brett, and he said, "You know everybody." That's what he said. So it sounds like you do.
Yeah.
Well, Mike,
I think Brett knows everybody too. But
Brett knows a lot of people as well. There's no question. Both of you do. But both great people. Brett's a great man, and as you are, Mike. Mike, thank you so much for taking the time today to join us. It means a lot to us, and we really do appreciate it. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Thanks a lot, Mike.
Wow. What? I don't even I don't even know where to. The guy was running out of Tower 1 when a plane hit Tower 2. The guy was in Mandalay Bay walking outside of the hotel during the shooting on October 1. What are the odds of that? I mean, it's just, you can be struck by lightning 10 times. There's probably a better chance of that. But what an inspirational story. What an inspirational guy. It's unbelievable. Now that we're on the topic, JD, of 9/11, that was incredible.